Welcome to the Dream Architect Life. I have the privilege and pleasure of having Mr. Peter Maller with us today. And if you've been listening to the last few podcasts, you know I've had my study group members that we've been together for 28 years on because they all have such really interesting stories that we can all learn a lot from their experiences. And the person that has probably the most unique story is Peter Maller. And so I'm really excited to have you on today, Pete.
Oh, thanks so much, Brian, and it's my pleasure.
Well, as you can hear from Pete's accent, he might not be from these parts, as they say. And what I'd love Peter to do is to maybe just give a little background of, your a little bit of your story. As you're well aware, my study group's all a bunch of really successful financial advisors, and we've all helped each other over the years, being a sounding board and mentors to each other. And I think you'll find Peter's story and journey quite fascinating, especially what he's doing today. So with that, Peter, maybe give us a little background.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I do have a slightly different accent. It is not a Bostonian accent. I'm originally from South Africa, Brian, as you well know, and I came over from South Africa to play college tennis, um, and that was many decades ago. And I'm obviously still here. Well, after my tennis career, I needed to I had to decide what I wanted to do, and I interviewed with many different companies in many different spheres, and ultimately decided that this industry, the financial services, was one that was really exciting to me, and one where I could hopefully help a lot of people along the way. And so I for the next 35 years, participated in that industry. I got to meet amazing people like Brian Sweet and the rest of our study group. And then I was very fortunate to have the ability to retire maybe on the early side. And so what I've been doing over the last few years is transitioning to a completely different life than I have lived in the past, and so I think with good reason, and we can certainly get into that. But that's really a brief history of how I've gotten to where I am sitting in the seat.
And we will definitely get into what you're doing today because I think it's really, excuse me, really motivating what you're doing today. And I think it's a good framework for others to be able to use to help them go from something to something. Because I think, well, I actually know, at least with all the clients we deal with, that's sometimes the most difficult transition that people have. And when Peter says he's had a good run, Peter is the number one guy at his firm for, I don't know, it's like 87 years in a row or something like that, Peter. But just an amazing, successful career. And one of the things I find fascinating, being from another country, coming to our country, you've kind of excelled at literally everything that you've done. You're an amazing athlete, and you've excelled at being an amazing financial advisor. But part of that and what this program is all about is dreaming big and making life what you want it, not just letting it happen. So maybe tell us a little bit about what dreaming big means to you, and how dreaming about what your future became helped you get there.
Brian, I've actually always been a dreamer. Even as a kid, I've always thought about the possibilities of what I could become and what I could do, and that was almost instinctive for me. So that certainly helped. I would always marvel at successful people, and more so, I would I would marvel at successful people that were not just one dimensional, but were successful in every part of their life, or most parts of their life. Um, I would often I would often see people that were successful in one realm, but were really not successful at all in other parts of their life, and that was a little bit of a turnoff to me. And so maybe that's what molded me in the beginning. It really started on the sports field. I also took my academics pretty seriously in school, and so it was important to me to do the best that I could do and be the best that I could be in whatever I attempted to do, while still maintaining my friendships and still being respectful of others that were less fortunate. And so that's kind of how this all began. When I've kind of finished my tennis career, I played competitive tennis. I coached at a fairly high level. I was at Florida State for a few years. I then decided to get into the financial services industry, which arguably could have been the stupidest thing I had ever done, because I didn't know anybody, right? Normally you have to know a lot of people and you have to reach out to contacts and things like that. There were no guaranteed salaries, as you well know. You've got to build a clientele, and as you build a clientele, you start generating some income for yourself. So I was literally starting with nothing, but that didn't scare me. I was excited about the prospect of our industry because, wrongly or rightly, it seemed to fit with who I was. And so I was okay starting with absolutely nothing. And the prospects of what this could be really, really, really motivated me. And so it forced me to do all the right things, work hard, focus, and eventually we got this ball rolling. And as I built the business, I read a lot. I went to a lot of conferences. I learned a lot from others. I tried not to fall into the trap of trying to do everything and be everything to all people. And so what I mean by that is, as soon as I could afford to hire a part-time assistant, I did that. And then I was able to afford a full-time assistant. And then I was able to add more and more people to the team, so that it freed me up to establish relationships with my clients, who have become very dear friends of mine over the course of time. I essentially outsourced absolutely everything else to others, while I just spent all of my time maintaining my relationships, building trust, etc., etc. And so this dreaming big thing just aligned me in a path that has thankfully enabled me to build a large clientele, and it's a clientele that is very close to me, and those relationships will last forever.
Yeah. And I say this with true meaning to it. You probably are one of very few humans that I can say are a master at relationships. Just having known you for a long time, the little things that you do and the outreaches and how you take care of people, it's a lesson we can all learn from. And one of the things that I think holds some people back, and you kind of talked about it before indirectly, is when you're going to try something new or you've not been successful at it, you're going to have fear. And you really didn't have fear, because I think maybe you said, this is what I want my future to look like, and this is going to be my driving force so that I can get there at some point in time in the future. Would that be correct? Or maybe the way to answer that is, what did you have to do to overcome fear as you went along, so that you made your future what your dream was?
I think that's more like it. I certainly had fear, and quite frankly, even going back to my youth, where I would play I played pretty competitive rugby and cricket and tennis and athletics, and I was always nervous going into various matches. And then somehow you had to overcome that, right? And so it's not all that easy, but there are different techniques you can use to overcome that. And it was the same thing with business. You're in the beginning, you're talking to people where you're just not comfortable, and so you absolutely have to overcome that. So there was a tremendous amount of fear, but Brian, I didn't let fear get in the way of where I wanted to go. I knew that I had to deal with that, and so I just kept challenging myself all the way through, and once you got past that, you became far more comfortable with that scenario of which you were fearful at one point in time, and I guess that's what experience is all about. So what I was dealing with on the sports fields and the sports courts back in the day is exactly what I dealt with in my business life, and it was great training for my business life. So for sure there was fear. I feel like if there isn't fear, maybe you're not challenging yourself enough. That would be my takeaway from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I
Well,
would answer that.
yeah, well said. Is there anything that you could share that you did on a regular basis that helped you overcome fear that maybe would be a resource for somebody else?
Well, I believe that the way I would deal with this was to say, I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm actually going to lean into it, and I'm actually going to seek out scenarios where I am fearful. So I put myself in those situations, and the way that I dealt with it was probably manifold, and maybe I can't explain exactly all of those scenarios, but simple things like breathing, right? At its fundamental a point, just getting into a state of being where you can actually move ahead. That became something that I learned. Also, for me, being ultra prepared allowed me to overcome a lot of this fear. And then really establishing relationships made those fearful situations not quite as fearful as I had imagined. So those were just a few of the ways that I would overcome it. And then once you can get through that scenario, if it was successful or partly successful, you build confidence. And next time around, not nearly as fearful. If you are not successful, and trust me, I've done a lot of losing in my life. Well, then you got to go back to the drawing board to see what you could have done differently. And so, with anything in life, there's always a lesson. And shame on me if I didn't go back to figure out what I could have done differently. You can't ignore that. Those are the teaching moments. Like in tennis, you learn so much more when you lose than when you win, or any sport or anything in life. The key is you've got to go back and revisit that, and maybe play it out again and visualize how by doing a few different things, maybe the outcome could be different.
Yeah. Makes me think of a saying I heard is, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
100%. That's
Yeah,
exactly right.
yeah. Because
And
I do
we
think whenever you're feeling uncomfortable, you're doing the right thing or you're in the right room. And that's how we, grow as humans is pushing ourselves and having that kind of uncomfortable feeling. And the more you do it, it does gain you confidence. I agree.
I really do believe that. I gave a speech a few years ago, on how we had a little bit of success in our industry, and one of the slides was titled "Doing the Uncomfortable Things," and then I listed maybe 20 things that were uncomfortable to me, and you just have to do them. If you're not doing the uncomfortable things, you're not pushing yourself.
Yeah.
And And like anything, nothing's easy, right? And nothing's overly enjoyable all the time. But when you do ultimately have some success, it just feels so good after all the trials and tribulations that you've gone through. If it was easy, I don't think you would feel as good about the outcome, right?
Yeah, 100% agree.
Hey, Brittany here. In case you hadn't heard, our latest book, Dream Architecture, is available for the taking. Think about it like this. What is your biggest, wildest dream of what retirement could look like? Not the dream that your friends have, or your parents maybe had, or your coworkers. Your best dream, the unreasonable one, the one that you might have trouble admitting even to yourself. So that is what the Dream Architecture book is about. Hop on over to dreamarchitecturebook.com so you can start dreaming big today.
Well, one of the things I think that helps a person's success is their, values. And I know you have some very strong values. So how would you describe like value alignment with, helping accomplish your dreams or your bigger future?
I think it's so important, Brian. We all see the world very, very differently, and you've got to be honest with yourself. Otherwise, it doesn't feel right. And so over time, you establish these values, and staying in alignment. You've got to be true to yourself, right? So for me, it is so vitally important to be respectful of everybody. And what's been so enjoyable to me is that over the course of time, I've had people come up to me that would say things like, I met you 15 years ago. I was a nobody in whatever industry. You took the time to chat and you were so kind to me. Brian, I don't even remember these scenarios, but that gives me so much joy when people come up and say, thank you for being so respectful to me, and that might be the same as caddies at our golf course or whomever, right? Whomever in life. Everyone's important. Everyone has their thing. Everyone has bad days. Everyone is dealing with issues, and so for me, just being respectful of everybody is so important. And so I've tried to incorporate that into my life, into my work. And I would hope that with the clients that we've taken on over the course of time, whether they are uber wealthy or somewhat wealthy or not all that wealthy, I would hope that comes through to them, that we're respectful of them, we're listening, we're hearing, we're feeling. That to me is probably the driving force, and the value that I align with the most.
Yeah, and I'll give you a quick compliment. I think that just shines through. But the really great thing, and we'll kind of talk about maybe your next chapter here in a second, but you've really kind of created the team environment where everybody that works with you, really does the same thing. And I think part of, why your firm is so successful while you were there, and also now that things have changed a little bit, they continue to be successful because you gave them all the right principles and shared those values, and they took them to heart, and now they treat clients like you treated clients, and it just shows through.
I thank you for saying that. So that is a really good point. When you think about the three-legged stool, at least in the life that we've lived, there's the client, there's the we call them team members. I hate the word employee. I think it's demeaning. And then there's me, right? So the three-legged stool, and the age-old question is, who's the most important, right? And for me, all three are equally important. So I've really, really tried to work hard to have my team feel like they are valued. I treat them as professionally as I do my clients. And it's so, I hope it's not just them seeing me deal with my clients in a certain manner, but I hope they see me dealing with them in a certain manner. And the relationship I've tried to instill is one of respect again. And so I think that's what carries through, and hopefully that has helped them do a good job with our clients as well. You don't want to forget about yourself too. I've probably not been very good about that. Like I've always put myself third. But as you and I have talked about for the last 28 years, you got to stay healthy. You got to sleep well. You've got to stay current. You really do need to carve out time for yourself, so that you actually can be able to deliver all the things that are important to us.
Yeah, and before I get to the next chapter here, you mentioned the health and longevity focus, because that is something we do chat about as a group, and I think you have a special attention to it. So obviously, health and longevity is one of the pillars in the Dream Architect life, and you have done a lot and continue to do a lot in that area. Maybe talk a little bit about how that's been helpful to you, even, while you were hard at, building the practice, and now that you're doing other things, has anything changed as it relates to, the health and wellness part?
No, that's right. It's always been a major focus, and I've probably learned a lot again from the sports field or the court or whatever the case may be. We are the engine that drives whatever it is that we drive. It's our family, it's our friends, it's our clients, it's our team members. And if the engine isn't working very well, you really can't be all that you want to be. And so, I learned that at an early age on the tennis court. You got to sleep well, right? You got to go into that match with energy. You've got to have sustenance. You've got to be eating well, and you've got to be hydrating and things like that. You've got to get ahead of cramps. So I look at my young son, one of my sons now, drinking pickle juice before matches, and taking magnesium and whatever it is that fuels the body so that you can be the absolute best. So I learned that from a young age, and I've never really lost that. And all the reading that we've done and the people that we've talked to, Brian, about health and longevity, really, really important. So making sure that you really devote a lot of time to ensuring that you sleep well at night. Well, a lot of people don't sleep well. I have a tendency to have not been the best sleeper, but I've really worked hard at all the things that I've learned that actually do make a difference. Trying to get to bed at a similar hour, no matter what's gone on during the day. A dark room, a cool room, putting the electronic devices away a couple hours beforehand, not drinking or eating right before you go to bed. All the things that we've studied. Important to have a purpose, right? So I think that keeps driving us, and that's really important to have that be a front and center. You want to learn new things so that you can keep the neurons firing in the brain, right? And that helps avoid or delay dementia. Obviously, exercise is important. Being involved in a community, we have our study group. We talk every single week, and so these are a lot of the things that I spend a lot of time today. But I've always spent a lot of time with that. And boy, think about all the people we've brought in to speak to us about this, because it's just so darn important.
I couldn't agree more. You used the word purpose, and when I think of purpose, one of the people that come to mind is you, and you're one of those individuals where I think people can learn a lot from about what you're going to share with us, because you've had this amazing career at top of your field, everything, and, not that it was always easy, but I mean, you made it, a spectacular career, were well known. And then you made some decisions because you wanted, as you alluded to earlier, you wanted like a little balance, and you didn't want to just always have a big business career. Family and other things were important. And so, at what I would say is a relatively young age, you decided to scale back and do other things. And I would love you to share a little bit about that journey and what you did to make those decisions, because of anybody that has gone through it, from what I'm seeing, Pete, you've made a great transition. And when we get to chat with you, hearing about what you're able to do, and the times you can travel with your children to sporting events to help promote what they like to do, but you also have interest in. I just think there's some lessons in there that I'd love you to share what you're doing, and if somebody could pick up a tidbit of why you did it and how you did it successfully, could be really, really helpful.
Yeah, no problem, Brian. And so, yeah, we had a decent run with the business, and as you know, you do get treated like royalty at conferences, and people tend to know who you are, and sometimes there's preferential treatment and things like that, and obviously we all feel good about the successes that we've had. But I've never really let it define me. That is not who I am. I really, and this is somewhat cliche, I really live to serve, and the joy that I got was making a positive difference in people's lives. It wasn't about the money or the fame or anything else. I just wanted to make a difference to each and every client, and I wanted each and every client to feel like they were my only client. And that's the premise in which we lived and worked. I also realized that it's really easy to, well, not that easy, but you get on this treadmill, and what's easy is staying on the treadmill. It is very difficult to get off of the treadmill and change the way that you've been living your life for in my case, I've been in the industry for 35 years. And I really, really paid attention to that. And there were certain books that I read and people that I talked to who maybe helped me in seeing the future. And so you don't just, in our industry, decide to retire overnight. It's a process. It takes time. You've got to make sure you have the right people that are going to back you up and ultimately take over for you. And so this was probably a 10-year plan in the making, and it needed to happen slowly and methodically and with direction and purpose. And so I did eventually get to the point where I was able to walk away. And what was very, very important to me is that I wanted this transition to be almost seamless to our clients. They deserve the very best, and I wanted to make sure that they continue to get the very best. And then, and I think this was kind of where you were going, I needed to be okay with where I was heading. And so what was important to me was to be able to spend a little bit more quality time with my family. And I have 2 girls and 2 boys. I wanted to spend time with all 4 of them. My 2 girls are in the early years of their work lives. And so I don't get to see them as often because they're out of the house. But I always want to be around when they come back. And that wasn't always the case before. And I then have 2 younger boys, one of which is going to play collegiate tennis at Bates up in Maine. And so, just to be able to spend time with him at the various tournaments over the last couple of years has just been a godsend. And then my youngest son is a golf star, and he would like to play a collegiate golf. And so going to a lot of the golf tournaments with him has just been exceptional. and then, spending quality time with my wife as well. And that's a transition, right? Because she's not used to having me around as much. So you really have to work through that too. And so I think I was pretty organized and prepared. You can't be prepared for everything, but it's been a lot easier than I thought it would be, Brian, and I'm loving every minute of it, and I have absolutely no regrets.
Yeah, well, every time we chat with you and talk, you just kind of glow when you get to speak about, some of the things you've got to do with the family. So I would also agree that it's going well. So, given, your progress and you've had this exceptional career and now, you've changed that a little bit. Now you're able to do more things with the family. What are maybe some of the greatest lessons that you've learned that might be helpful to others that you might want to share?
As I've transitioned, correct?
Well, just either from working or your transition, just in general, maybe some of your greatest lessons that helped you, get to where you are today, or just I'm just, in general, I guess, is what I'm curious about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there are a few. I touched on one earlier, and that is being generally respectful of everybody. I think if you keep that mindset, you just can never go wrong. The other thing that I found in my working career, which has always been a bit of a head scratcher to me, and we probably did this better than most, but it came as a shock to me that maybe we were the anomaly, and that is investing in your business. I feel like so many people in business are penny wise and pound foolish. I certainly understand that you've got to protect the bottom line, and you've got to really pay attention to your expenses and keep them manageable. No argument there. But I think for a lot of people, they almost do that maybe a little bit more than they should, and they don't invest as much as they should in the business, and that is really what holds them back. So I've always been one that's invested a ton in my business. I've really tried to focus on the top line and not the bottom line. That doesn't mean I don't pay attention to the bottom line, but I think really paying attention to the top line, investing in your business, is what has helped us to become successful. We, as a solo practitioner, I've had 21 people behind the scenes. You have a lot of team members as well. You can't be your best if you don't have a great team behind you. And so for the people that are trying to, cut back on their expenses and have one or two people behind them, I just don't know how you can be your best, because you, Brian, and me, Peter, are doing all the kinds of things then that we shouldn't be doing. And so that to me is one of the most valuable lessons that I learned over the course of time. As I've transitioned, I think the lessons that I've learned, I actually have a wonderful lady by the name of Sheila Cox. And I don't know if you ever read the book Tuesdays with Maury.
I have, yes. Been a while, but yes.
Tuesdays with Maury, a great book written yesteryear.
Mitch Albom, right?
That's exactly. Mitch Albom is the person who wrote it. So with me, it's Mondays with Sheila. Every single Monday, I spend 30 minutes with Sheila. It used to be Thursdays. We've been doing this for about 15 years now. Maybe it's 20 years. Sorry, Sheila, if I'm shortchanging the timeline here. But Sheila's my accountability coach. And every Monday, I send her 2 or 3 yellow sheets on all the things that I've been focused on during the week. What happened during the week? What was good? What wasn't good? Why did this happen? Why did I act a certain way? What should I have done? It has really helped me stay on track. One of the things we track, as I am living this new life, so to speak, is the list that I created of all the joyful things I want to do each and every week. And so from time to time, we go through that list. We actually just went through that list on Monday. And so there's a scorecard. How am I doing with regards to all the things that I find joy in? And then it's a question of updating the list. Are there things I want to add to that list? Are there things I want to take away from that list? Equally important is the list that I created, the not so joyful things. And am I still getting stuck with the not so joyful things? And so reviewing that list is really, really important. Your inner circle, Brian, all the people that you love associating with, are you in fact making the effort to reach out to these people and spending time with them? Well, we go through that list. The ideal schedule, we look at the ideal schedule. I love to work out in the mornings. I don't have quite the same energy in the afternoons or the evenings. And so when I start my day with a good workout, I just feel terrific. There's no feeling like that. And so I can feel the difference when I don't work out or don't work out in the mornings. And so that ideal schedule becomes really, really important to follow. And so those are some of the things that have been really important to me. And the list
I find that fascinating, Pete, from from this aspect. A lot of people I know have accountability coaches while they're working. You kept yours.
I did.
I think that is really an amazing positive lesson. And I always knew you worked with Sheila, but I didn't realize you continued to work with her. So I'm learning something today. But I love what you're doing with that, because by doing that, things that are important to you to make your next chapter happy and successful, she's making sure, you're accountable to it, which is, her job. But most of the time people will let those people go because now whatever. So kudos to you.
Yeah, this was a discussion I had with Sheila, and as I'd gone through the transition, she said, "Do you still want to do this, Peter?" And I said, "Are you kidding me? I want to do this now more than ever before, because I went through this change in life for a very specific reason, and that was for the first time in my life to have freedom of time, to have freedom of purpose." To maybe have the freedom of letting go of some of the responsibility or that I've shouldered, because I've taken my job very, very, very seriously. And so I said, "Sheila, more than ever, this is the time where I need you to hold me accountable. And if you're willing to keep going, I would love to keep going too."
Yeah, I would say, boy, that is a great lesson we can all benefit from, is to keep that in mind. If you are, doing a transition, or if you're transition, maybe go get yourself an accountability coach. One of the things, though, that I think has also maybe helped you do this is you're a big reader. And I know you've read lots of books during the time that you were thinking of, transitioning, and just, even today. Is there a couple of books that you would suggest to people that have been really, really helpful in, making that transition, or just, given that you are in a little different scenario today, this book has really been helpful to help me keep on track?
Yeah, I do read a fair amount, Brian. And there was one book specifically, From Strength to Strength, is a book that I read that really hit home for me. And I was already going down this road, but that having read that book really gave me the impetus to continue to move forward with vigor. And so. Yeah, there were probably a couple other books as well. There were people in the space that I really listened to also. And so, as I talked about, those freedoms became really, really important to me. I was running really hard. I'm one of these people that believes in, if you take on a client, you have a heck of a responsibility. And doing everything via Zoom is just not good enough. There's nothing like face-to-face, where you can read body language and you get to meet people's families, and you see what's important to them. And so I was on a plane nonstop. And so it did become important to me that I wanted some of these freedoms, and I've never really had time. And so I wanted to have time so that I could do things that were important for me and my family. I think the giving back aspect, you and I have accumulated experience, right? And I think when you get to this stage, everybody has accumulated experience in whatever field they've chosen. And so how powerful is that to take the time to give back to others, which is part of what I'm doing now. We have so much we can share with the younger generation to maybe help them move up a little bit faster. And so keeping that all to yourself is not something that I've ever thought about. And again, I don't want to become a preacher to anybody, but for those that are wanting to learn, I can't tell you how many people reach out to me saying, can we get together for lunch? I just had someone 3 days ago. I've been in the industry for 15 years, and my dad said I should reach out to you. And so I do a lot of that stuff. We will have breakfast and lunch, and I can answer people's questions and at least give them my perspective on how I got to this point.
Yeah. And if you can help somebody avoid some of the mistakes to get success quicker, boy, that's really helpful.
I think that's right. And not only the mistakes, but getting through the low points, right? And so, one of the lessons that I've learned in life, maybe this is the most important one of all. I really do believe, Brian, that there is a solution to everything. And so when I'm faced with a difficult scenario, the first thing that enters my mind is, Peter, there's a solution. Don't panic. Let's just try and figure this out. And so we've all been in situations before where we've thought, oh my goodness, this is just awful, and I don't think there's any way out of this. There's always a way out of it. And so I've even, I spent a lot of time with my kids that have also gone through their ups and downs to try and instill in them that there is always a solution. And it's the same thing with people that reach out to us in our industry or in other industries or just in life, right? We all go through low points. There's always a solution.
Yeah, such wisdom, Peter. Well, unfortunately, we're getting close to the end of our podcast here. I could chat with you for hours, but maybe a couple other questions here. Given that you had this amazing career and you're having this very successful next chapter, what would be some of your biggest or most important dreams or aspirations for the future going forward? What's on that accountability list?
No, that's exactly right. So there's the age-old adage that if you stop growing, you're moving backwards, right? So your future has to be bigger than the past, right? We've all seen those. We've all had those discussions.
Actually, my cup says that, Peter.
Oh, there we go. You didn't even prompt me on that. So there we go. Yeah. So I think that's right. I talk to a lot of people that are older than me that were also successful. And oftentimes I do hear from these people that you don't want to get too conservative as you get older, right? So you still want to do some risk taking within reason. And you still want to make your future bigger than your past. And so a lot of the things that I focus on are the health and longevity topic that we talked about there. I want to make sure that we maintain a fiscally sound income base and asset structure for me and my family, so that we can continue to do the things that we enjoy doing, like travel and what have you. I certainly invest a lot in my kids with all the golf and the tennis and the travel that my girls do. And so, yeah, some of it is personal and some of it is family. And we certainly want to spend more time with our kids and our future grandkids. And so that's really the stuff that we're focused on. So if you can maintain a semblance of fiscal responsibility, if you can remain healthy, that really should be number one. You really can do anything. And what's also become important to me is getting involved, and I've always been involved in charitable organizations. And so these may be truly charitable organizations. I'm also involved in the educational field with certain high schools and colleges, universities. I participate on various boards. So they're making a difference. Volunteering, I think, is really, really important. And then getting my kids to know the importance of that, and so participating with them. Those are some of the things that I'm focused on now.
Yeah. Well, exceptional tidbits of wisdom today, Peter. So one final question would be, what haven't I asked you that I should have asked you?
Wow. What haven't you asked me? Yeah, you can see I'm stumbling for an answer. I mean, you've really asked a lot of the broad-based questions, which I think encompass so much. You probably could have asked me about any regrets that I've had, and truly, Brian, I'm sure there have been a few regrets from time to time, but I don't dwell on those. If I've made mistakes, I really try and fix them. I really don't have many regrets, and I'm not sure that I would have lived my life any differently. We all kind of focus on the things that we weren't quite able to do, whether it's in life, in business, on the sports field. You focus on the matches that you just lost, and somehow you forget about the matches that you just won. That's just life. But I think you need a broader perspective, and you need to get away from the small regrets that we've all faced and focus on all the positives that have come out of this, and maybe the lives that you've touched.
Yeah, I think that's a great note to end on, Peter. Think of regrets more like either you're winning or you're learning. So the regrets were learning experiences that help you make life better in the future. So
100%.
really appreciate all the tidbits today, Peter, and you're just a shining example of how to have an amazing career and how to have an amazing next chapter. And the best part is I get to call you my friend, and truly appreciate your time today, Peter.
I call you my friend too, and you're such an amazing guy, and it's only my pleasure, Brian.
All right. Well, take care, and we look forward to seeing everybody in the next issue of The Dream Architect Life. Thanks again.